I think of creativity a little like literacy. It's a fundamental capacity that we all have. It's not something that only a few people have, but it's also a set of capacities that need to be cultivated. So creativity, as I see it, is about the process of having original ideas that have value. And it's possible in every area of human life, wherever human intelligence is at work. To me, it's a very important part of the priorities we should be setting now for education. One of the arguments I make in Changer l'école is that education has a range of purposes. There isn't a single understanding of what education is. It's one of those words like democracy and freedom. People think they know what they mean by it until they discover that other people mean different things by it. There are at least 4 big purposes to education, as I see it, as I talk about them in creative schools. And in no particular order, education has economic roles, obviously. Sometimes people say it shouldn't be to do with the economy, but it obviously is to do with the economy, because parents expect when their children are educated that they'll be in a better position to become employed and financially productive and independent. So there's a big question now, which is, given how the world is changing economically, what sort of education do our children need? What sort of skills do they need? What sort of attitudes? Education has big social roles, which is what we're talking about here, that our communities are complicated and delicately balanced. They depend upon the participation in social institutions, in democracies. They depend upon people taking part in elections, in contesting them fairly and freely. They depend on freedom of speech. These are the great pillars of Western democracies. But John Dewey, the great educator, once said that every generation has to rediscover democracy. These things aren't built into our gene pool. We have to discover them culturally and come to value them. And we're living at a time now when it's quite clear that there are major cultural clashes and conflicts, and the resolution of them depends upon the peaceful exercise of our democratic processes, which is what citizenship is about. And we can't expect our young people to simply become infected by democracy by being part of it. They have to learn about it and learn to respect how it works. And there are lots of disincentives. Often the way we see politicians behave doesn't give them a lot of encouragement to our young people to believe that these are institutions they can have confidence in. But nonetheless, they're what we have. So education for citizenship, it could be taken as a kind of rather dreary obligation to give young people lectures in civics and the history of our institutions. But there's a much more active way to think about it, which is to engage them in the living processes of democratic participation. There is, for example, a very interesting movement around the world now in democratic schools. There are schools that are run on democratic principles. That's to say that the students participate in the governance of the school and in the choices the school makes, so they become used to the participatory process of democracy. So the citizenship agenda is very important. I think it's fundamentally important to our societies now. There's a third role of education which is connected to it, which is cultural. We need forms of education which help people understand their own cultures, their own traditions and histories, and what shaped them and why they are as they are, and how they're changing. But also, we live in a very complicated, interconnected, and, as I say, finely balanced ecosystem around the world. And we need to understand how other cultures work and how they are as they are and why they are as they are. You know, we are now experiencing, and not least in France, as we know, a kind of earthquake of cultures colliding in like great tectonic plates shifting against each other. And these are associated around the world too. You can see it in the growth of nationalism, of sectionalism. I live in America now, and it's exactly the problem we're facing there, and it's a very disturbing trend. And education has an important role here if we believe in the importance of people coexisting peacefully and helping us to share perspectives and not back away from them. And education has personal roles. It's helping people find their own talents and purpose and direction in life. So these are complicated issues, but they are the roles of education. And if we don't fulfill them properly, then I think we will pay a price for it.